everyone, and welcome to the program. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Results of the presidential election in Uganda are in, and incumbent President Yoweri Museveni is back in power. The 76-year-old has been in power since 1986 and now hopes to continue providing jobs for the country's young population, many of whom have not known any other president but him. And then this week, Joe Biden is sworn in as America's 46th president, despite the winding road of political obstacles coming from the Republican Party and outgoing President Donald Trump. We'll be talking to former American ambassador to Nigeria, Robin Sanders, on the latest developments in the United States and how a Joe Biden administration can heal the nation and unite America with her friends and partners again, especially here in Africa. So let's get started with a quick check on other discussions in diplomatic circles. The Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs says President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the posting of ambassadors delegate to Nigerian missions abroad. On the list are 43 career ambassadors and 52 non-career ambassadors. The process of requesting agreement from the prospective host countries has commenced. Uganda opposition leader Bobi Wine's party says it is preparing to challenge incumbent President Yoweri Museveni's election victory and condemns what it calls the house arrest of Bobi Wine and his wife. Mr. Museveni was declared winner of the January 14 presidential poll, but the US and the UK have called for investigation into fraud reports and other concerns of the electoral process, while no words have been heard from the African Union observers deployed to monitor the poll.
We are going to take all measures, I repeat, all measures.
Gaza's ruling Islamist group Hamas has welcomed Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas's announcement of parliamentary and presidential elections. The elections, the first in 15 years, is widely seen as a response to criticism of the democratic legitimacy of Palestinian political institutions, including Abbas's presidency. Finally, the World Health Organization says it is pleased to collaborate with Chinese scientists as a team of WHO health experts arrive in Wuhan to investigate the origins of the novel coronavirus. The 13-member WHO team, who have started quarantine at a hotel in Wuhan in accordance with China's epidemic control measures, will conduct joint scientific research with Chinese scientists on the origin tracing of the novel coronavirus. Welcome back. Yoweri Museveni has been the only president Uganda has known for 35 years and has just begun his 36th. The country has been conducting elections and he's continued to be re-elected. And that's because of a change in the constitution that removes term limits for the president. And in this election, he got well over the number of majority votes to be elected winner.
It was slow. So I therefore thank the people of Uganda.
A victorious president-elect Yoweri Museveni addresses the nation hours after he was announced winner of the country's Thursday polls. He said the election was the most cheating-free since 1962.
I think this may turn out to be the most cheating-free election since 1962.
According to the Electoral Commission, Mr. Museveni won 5.85 million votes, or 58.6%, while the main opposition candidate Bobi Wine had 3.48 million votes, or 34.8%. Dressed in yellow, they blared music while soldiers and police were out in force patrolling the capital. 38-year-old Bobi Wine, on the other hand, galvanized young Ugandans with his calls for political change and pledged to end what he calls dictatorship and widespread corruption, something the Ugandan Electoral Commission Chairman Simon Byabakama says has to be proven by Mr. Wine. On Friday, he said his life was in danger as the government deployed armed security forces around his compound in Kampala.
Our lives are in danger. And should anything happen to us, at least we have had the opportunity while still alive to expose everything that is being plotted on our lives.
Even on election day, Mr. Wine decried voter intimidation and on election day said his polling agents were also being intimidated by military and police. There's been more violence in this year's campaign than in previous elections, those on ground say, with scores killed when security forces cracked down on Wine's rallies. Opposition candidates, supporters and campaign staff have been repeatedly arrested. The government even ordered an internet blackout until further notice on Wednesday, January the 13th, a day before the election, and right after it banned all social media and messaging apps. International body, the United Nations, called on national stakeholders to ensure the polls are conducted in an all-inclusive, transparent and peaceful manner. The UN Secretary-General, through his spokesperson, Stefan Dujarric, said he was concerned about the reports of violence and tensions in parts of the country ahead of the polls. The US and EU did not deploy observer teams to the country, as many of the observers were denied accreditation. But the U.S. State Department's top diplomat for Africa said in a tweet, the electoral process has been fundamentally flawed.
The more than 71 million people who supported U.S. President Donald Trump at the polls are quickly realizing there is no keeping him in the White House longer than January 20th this year. And in the last 2 weeks, we've seen members of the administration resign their appointments over the attack on the Capitol on January 6th.
It is now my great honor to lead. I know this
Latest being the Health Secretary, Alex Azar, who resigned on Friday, January 15th. He told the president in a letter last week that the attack on the Capitol could tarnish the legacy of his administration. While he has resigned, remains in office until January 20th. January 20th is inauguration of the Biden-Harris administration, and it's day one for them to hit the ground running. Security is being beefed up, we understand, not only in Washington, D.C., but in all 50 states of the United States. Following tip-offs of violence and attacks that could erupt on that day, as well as protests, authorities are still investigating the attack on January 6th, but the lawmakers are busy impeaching President Trump.
Members will record their votes by electronic device.
Last week, the House of Representatives impeached him a second time, making him the first U.S. president to be impeached twice.
The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi will be submitting the article of impeachment to the Senate this week, and who knows what could happen. While the president is impeached, it does not change much about him being a former president. I hope you know. It could put a major obstruction, though, on his political future. For the incoming administration, Joe Biden is no stranger to the White House. He was vice president in the Obama administration, leaving high expectation for his administration, one of which will be uniting a country divided on political lines and on the people's interpretation of the law and what to do about the cult-like followers and supporters President Trump leaves behind. President Trump, many believe, isolated America from most of her partners with his ideas on nationalism and sometimes his unguarded comments on his thoughts of the country. But he also got Americans thinking more about their country. Many argue about improved economy. Especially before the coronavirus, he strengthened relations with a number of Middle Eastern and Gulf partners, arguably killed one of the most dangerous enemies of the United States after Osama bin Laden, and stopped China's unfair trade with the United States. I want to bring in now former American ambassador to Nigeria, Ambassador Robin Sanders, to talk some more about this. Ambassador Sanders, thank you for joining us on the program, and a Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure as always, and Happy New Year to you and all the Channels TV family.
Over the last few weeks now, the focus has been on what President Donald Trump did to divide America, and that seems to have claimed, headlines, especially in the United States. But before the election year, would you say that America was winning under President Trump? Because this was part of his promise during the campaigns, and he said Americans will win so much that they get tired of winning, which also propagated his Make America Great Again slogan.
I think winning is an interesting term. I would say that certainly we have challenges that don't underscore the definition of winning here. You saw the civil strife that happened on the Capitol on January 6th. I live in the Washington area. We are in complete lockdown. It looks like a military zone. We have alerts across the nation today and through the rest of the week on possible attacks against other state capital cities. And so certainly in the social and social justice areas, we certainly haven't won anything. And I would say globally, the same thing would probably apply as we look at the alienation that has happened with our global partners and our friends across the world. So on that, certainly a D- for sure. And I don't think the term winning is applicable to where we are as a nation today.
Now, a lot of people said President Donald Trump did well with the economy, and then the coronavirus happened. What do you think?
You know, the economy was doing well before coronavirus happened, but I do want to give credit to the fact that the current president actually inherited a repaired economy when he came into office. And so the wave of the US economy in the right direction was already underway when he took office. He did further capitalize on that. And I think that that's still reflective in what we see today, where the stock market really hasn't taken a hit once it rebounds from the initial shock of COVID. And it's still riding quite high. And so, yes, he maintained a strong economy, but he also inherited an economy that had been repaired and had come out of recession from the previous Obama years. And so you have to give him, credit for that aspect. But I do think that that alone clearly is not enough to make America a peaceful place to live these days.
Yeah, and I do feel a lot of the support that he had came from these people who probably saw how the economy was progressing and, through the support behind him. But I also want to talk about the perception of America by her partners, especially those in Europe. When the president came into power, he came in, one of his first attacks went to NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. He called on leaders to play their part, saying that they've been dependent on the United States, to foot most of the bills for many of their missions. And now he wanted them, to step up and do what they were supposed to do and take their own responsibility. Today, not a lot of Western partners are happy with the way relations have apparently dwindled. We heard Secretary of State Mike Pompeo just a few days ago reeling out the achievements of this administration. What sort of achievements would you say that this administration has in its pocket as against the negativities that follow the last few weeks of President Trump's days in office?
Well, let me just say at the onset, I hope I get an opportunity to comment on the first part of your question in terms of support for President Trump. It's not just limited to those who are at the upper economic echelon of our society. But turning to your question and our partners, I do think that the alienation that we've had with our traditional European partners, and I would say for Africa in particular, there has not been a lot of focus on Africa by this administration, and I suspect that will change drastically as we go forward with the Biden administration. But certainly we need to rebuild back our relationships across our NATO allies and our European partners. That certainly has taken a hit, as has our relationship in international organizations, be it WHO or WTO and others. And so I do think that this winning achievement columns that you have outlined, I think that there's certainly less in that than at any other time that I can remember in my adult life, where we have had such a long distance relationship with some of our historical and traditional partners in a way that has made them doubt America's word, made them doubt America's commitment, and we have to see that turn around.
We'll take a short break. Our conversation with Ambassador Sanders continues after now. of analysts talk about what happened on January 6th and the implications of it, but they always say that America will bounce back from this. Your saving grace, of course, is the democratic institutions that are strong enough. You have the courts, you have the Constitution, and there's so many fundamentals that America can build back on. But do you think the healing has started?
No, I don't think the healing has started. I think we have a long way to go before we can even use the word healing. The question is to understand the underlying issues. Why are people so angry? Why is there this divide? And it's not just along economic lines. When you look at the profile of some of the protesters, a lot of those protesters were, middle-class Americans. They weren't Americans necessarily in economic strife. And so the question is, why is there this different? Why do you define democratic principles and support to the Constitution differently than I define it? The structure of a nation, the national character of a nation, is based on the values that their nationals believe represents the country. And so we're at a point where it's divided in what that means for different Americans around the country. So the question is, how do you address that? What are the underlying causes that have made that sentiment come to bear? And that's where I think it's hard to say, when we can bounce back. But what I would say is my watchword would be resilience. When you talk about institutions, institutions are made up of people. And we saw a lot of cracks in our institutions over the last 4 years that need to be codified now in law. There were traditional practices that we all had signed up to or believed in that have now shown that maybe they need to be codified in law to make them the order of the day. Whether it's every presidential candidate has to produce their tax returns, whether it's every presidential candidate or president cannot self-pardon or pardon family members. I mean, we have to look at some of these traditions that we took for granted, and we probably have to look at codifying them in law. And yes, I had always had faith in our institutions, and I think our institutions have gotten us to where we are today and will get us through January 6th and hopefully beyond. But we've got to shore up those institutions because we saw cracks in those that we don't want to ever see again. And so, yes, I think we can bounce back. The question is when, and the question is how. And so for me, that watchword would be resilience. What is our resilience going to be to get us there? And what are the steps we're going to take to help get us there? I come out of a background of not only diplomacy, but my father is a veteran of 2 U.S. wars. And so I understand, that sense of conflict and what that does. And he's 90 now, and there are a lot of veterans around the U.S. And we want to make sure that for every American that has put their life on the line, that we have a home for them back in the U.S. that's safe and secure and sound. And how we get there, what is our resilience to get back to that? And so I think it's going to be a difficult period of time. I don't know when we can bounce back, but I know that we have to put the steps in place to get there. And I'm looking forward to, seeing that happen. But I don't think it's going to be without other inflection points. But I hope that none of them are as bad as what we saw on January 6th.
Going forward, what could likely change in America-Africa relations under the Biden-Harris administration? We see that not a lot of reference was made to that during either in the debates or in the lead up to the inauguration.
Well, I think, Americans were really focused internally for this elections. And so I wouldn't take that personally per se. We had a lot going on with COVID and having these astronomical numbers, having, a tremendous hit to our economy. And so we were looking inward at issues for the elections, and therefore the foreign policy debates that you're used to seeing in previous election debates really didn't happen this year because of all of the things I just outlined, on top of everything being in a virtual format. So I think that the Biden administration has the incoming Biden administration has a large group of foreign policy experts and a larger group of even African experts that'll be involved in administration, even if they don't hold an Africa portfolio per se. I am waiting to see at the sub-cabinet level who the Assistant Secretary of State for Africa will be. That will be another important position that we need to see who will be put in that. It's the most diverse cabinet that America has ever had, not only by gender, but certainly by including diasporans, including a range of people of color from all over the globe in terms of their ancestry, et cetera. So I think that we have an opportunity to have a stronger partnership with Africa because of that diversity and because you have so many Africa hands, which is certainly an internal term we use here, but that means sort of policy experts on Africa being part of this administration and their larger stakeholder family of African experts. And so at Africa, not only experts, but people who have relationships with the continent over 15 to 20 years. And so have seen the trajectory of the relationship over time. So I do see Africa playing a larger part, not just on trade and investment, but I certainly see our engagement with, really calling out challenges in democracy that we see on the continent, going back to our fundamentals. Even though we may take criticism and people can point to January 6th and other things that have happened in our society, that doesn't mean that we still don't go out and do and say the right things with our partners.
President-elect Biden nominate a few Nigerians into some really important positions. So if their nominations are approved in the Senate, how can Nigeria better improve her relations with the United States, leveraging on that?
I think those are disconnected in my mind because they are representative of the portfolios that they will hold. And I don't think that you should mix the two things. They will do their jobs well, they will represent the administration, and they will represent administration policies. Broadly speaking, I think that Nigeria and the US have to have a strategic partnership because there's so many areas where we come together and where we need to come together. And certainly that would be on security issues, not just for Nigeria, but certainly for the whole Sahel region. It certainly would be as regards to, encouraging the same things that we need to encourage here, democratic processes, transparency, accountable government, human rights issues, all of those things that we need to talk about at home. We need to engage with Nigeria on those issues as well, not just for the country itself, but certainly for the Sahel region and the sub-region and the ECOWAS members as well. So, that strategic partnership, we have a framework already with Nigeria. We've had it for many years. It's called the Binational Commission, under which we can put any sector for discussion and strategic partnership. And so that framework already exists. That document was signed many years ago. And so we can have any kind of strategic partnership and put any sector under that umbrella. So I think that the most important thing is that you have people who care and know Africa well coming back into the administration. And I know that on the Nigerian side, we've always had a close relationship between Nigeria and America. I suspect that will get even closer under this administration because there had been a lull over the last 4 years. Let's get back to where we were. Let's build on that. And let's build on making sure that our strategic partnership works and that we have dialogues that we haven't had in a while coming back between the US and Nigeria.
Ambassador Sanders, thank you again for speaking with us. Appreciate your joining us and have a great year ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
And this is where we end the program today. Thanks again for watching. If you missed any of our episodes, including this one, you can catch up online at channelstv.com. Reach out to me at Amarachi_Ubani and Diplomatic Chan on Twitter. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Thanks for watching.